Many of us have experienced extreme temperatures before, but these temperatures are sure to pale in comparison to the world's most extreme. Join me as we take a look at the 15 most extreme temperatures ever recorded. Number 15. Death Valley, California. Located in the northern Mojave Desert in eastern California, the appropriately named Death Valley is the lowest point of the contiguous United States, reaching 282 feet below sea level in the Badwater Basin, despite being just 85 miles away from Mount Whitney, which is the highest point. Because of its low-lying geography between two mountain ranges and the fact that it's part of a wider desert, it's an extremely dry place and has a subtropical hot desert climate. There are a few factors that work together there, including extreme solar heating of the soil and rocks in the valley, and the way warm air travels there and is trapped in it. That makes this the hottest place on Earth, despite being more than 2,500 miles to the north of the equator. In 1913, a weather monitoring station recorded the highest temperature ever recorded when, in an area called Furnace Creek, it reached 134 degrees Fahrenheit or 56.7 degrees Celsius. And while this record hasn't been broken for more than a century, the region continues to produce sweltering conditions. In July of 2018, for example, the average temperature throughout the month was 108 degrees Fahrenheit, or 42.3 degrees Celsius, which itself is the highest monthly average ever recorded for any place in the world. Number 14. Dome Fuji, Antarctica. Dome Fuji is a huge ice dome in eastern Antarctica, which can be found in the Norwegian-claimed region of the continent called Queen Maud Land. First traversed by a Soviet exploration team in the mid-1960s, it's now the site of the Dome Fuji Station, which is a research facility operated by the Japanese. It's part of the East Antarctic ice sheet and sits on a divide between two sections of the enormous structure, and it's become a region of particular scientific interest because of how thick the ice is in that location. The second deepest core sample ever retrieved was taken from Dome Fuji, which provided climate data as far back as 720,000 years. But as well as giving valuable historical data, it continues to generate interesting measurements in modern times. The dome is technically classified as a desert because of how little precipitation falls there, and a combination of its inland location along with its altitude means that this is one of the coldest places on Earth. During the summer, it's incredibly rare that temperatures will rise above negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 30 degrees Celsius, while in the winter it often falls below negative 112 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 80 degrees Celsius. These are the extremes experienced there, but the average year-round air temperature at the dome is a chilly negative 66 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 54.3 degrees Celsius, meaning that the very little rain that does fall there will only ever hit the ground as hardened ice crystals. Number 13. Dalol, Ethiopia. The virtual ghost town of Dalol is located within the 2nd Administrative Division of the Afar region of Ethiopia and sits virtually on the country's border with Eritrea. At an elevation of 430 feet or 130 meters below sea level, it may be all but inhabited today, but the town did have a significant population in 1918 as an important source of potash. A railway was even built to help transport the salts to where they were needed, but after the First World War ended, there was such a flood of supply from the US, Germany, and the USSR that the industry in Ethiopia collapsed as quickly as it had begun. Since then, a few people have remained, and there were efforts in the 1960s to survey the area in case there were other valuable minerals that could be mined. These tests proved fruitless, though, and it soon became clear that there was something else unusual about the region: its climate. It's within a place called the Afar Depression and is also part of the Danakil Desert, so it has an official classification of a hot desert climate. This, along with its closeness to the Red Sea, which remains warm throughout the winter, and its position within the tropics, has resulted in it being the hottest place on the planet year-round, and also the record holder for the overall hottest inhabited place on Earth. In the years between 1960 and 1966, it averaged a temperature of 105.8 degrees Fahrenheit, or 41 degrees Celsius, and the highest temperature ever recorded there was 121 degrees Fahrenheit, or 49 degrees Celsius. Number 12. Oymyakon, Russia. Oymyakon can be found in the Sakha Republic of Russia, and it's named after the Oymyakon River that flows through it. It can be accessed by the famous Road of Bone, the R504 highway that cost as many as 1 million lives during its construction. And when you see the conditions those workers would have been building it in, it becomes clear why it came at such a price. With a population of around 1,000 people, Omiakan is surrounded on two sides by valleys, which are responsible for trapping cold air in and around the town. This has resulted in the formation of extremely cold conditions, which have been classified as being an extreme subarctic climate, and the town is often referred to as being the northern pole of cold, and by far the coldest permanently inhabited place anywhere on the planet. Temperatures are so low there that it's actually been found that at increasing altitudes, it begins to warm up, which is the only known place where this happens. Taking pride of place in the center of the town is a monument that was built to commemorate a temperature reading in January of 1924, when it was negative 96.2 degrees Fahrenheit, or negative 71.2 degrees Celsius. And while there are disputes as to how accurate this reading was, there have been further instances where the mercury has plummeted below negative 89.9 degrees Fahrenheit, or negative 67.7 degrees Celsius. These are the lowest temperatures recorded outside of Antarctica in the past 120 years, but what's possibly more surprising is what happens during the summer. It's not uncommon for the temperatures to rise to 86 degrees Fahrenheit or 30 degrees Celsius during the day, which makes it just one of a handful of places where temperature amplitude throughout the year exceeds 180 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius. Number 11. Wadi Halfa, Sudan. Situated on the shores of Lake Nubia near to the border with Egypt, the Sudanese city of Wadi Halfa is an important trade town where goods are moved from the terminus of a railway line onto boats that enter the lake and travel into the neighboring countries. It's also a place that's been inhabited for thousands of years, and a number of important ancient Nubian monuments and artifacts have been found in the surrounding areas. But another thing it's become famous for in recent years is its extreme climate. Between 97 to 98% of daylight hours are described as having bright sunshine, which makes it easily the sunniest city on Earth. But the consequence of this is that many years will often go by without a single drop of rain falling from the sky. The 15,000 residents there are therefore fully reliant on the lake for everything they need to sustain themselves, because there's no chance of growing crops on the dry and desolate land. Unsurprisingly, the city experiences extremely long and scorching hot summers with short and warm winters, and the average temperature throughout the whole of the year is 81 degrees Fahrenheit or 27 degrees Celsius. The actual temperatures tend to swing a lot, however, with the cold snaps coming during the night when there's no cloud cover to trap the warmth in. The hottest temperature ever recorded at Wadi Halfa was measured in April of 1967 as being 127 degrees Fahrenheit or 53 degrees Celsius, and based on recent changes in climate data, it's expected that this record will be repeatedly broken in the next few years. Number 10. Eureka, Nunavut, Canada. Founded in April of 1947, Eureka is a research facility that's on the Fosheim Peninsula of Ellesmere Island in the Qikiqtaaluk region of the Canadian province of Nunavut. Positioned alongside the Slierdia Fjord, which feeds into the nearby Eureka Sound, it's the third northernmost permanent research complex on Earth. It was originally built to help extend the network of weather stations around Canada and the Arctic to help further understand the polar climate and changes that are taking place. While it was fully successful in this regard, it did capture some interesting readings that suggest this may well be one of the coldest and rain-free regions in Canada, and potentially farther afield. Officially classified as having a polar climate, it's so far north that Eureka sees the midnight sun between April and August of each year and doesn't have any sunlight between October and February. It is a polar desert with an average of no more than 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters of rain each year, and while temperatures have been known to reach a maximum of 69.6 degrees Fahrenheit or about 20 degrees Celsius in the summer, they regularly drop to around negative 67 degrees Fahrenheit or about negative 55 degrees Celsius. Number 9. Dasht e Lut, Iran. The Lut Desert, which is known locally as Dasht e Lut, is the 34th largest desert and can be found across the Kerman, Sistan, and Balochistan provinces of Iran. Translated to mean empty plain, it covers an area of 20,000 square miles, or 51,000 square kilometers, and is made up of largely salt flats. Studies have suggested that as much as half of its surface is covered with volcanic rocks, and it sits within a large drainage basin. while during the summer, water can be seen streaming down from the nearby Kerman Mountains. It soon evaporates and the desert is regarded as one of the driest places in the world. Recent satellite technology has allowed researchers to measure surface temperatures of our planet in far greater detail than has ever been possible before, and a piece of equipment on NASA's Aqua satellite called the Moderate Resolution Imaging Spectral Radiometer made a surprising discovery between 2003 and 2010. It's the site of by far the hottest land temperatures anywhere on Earth. It found that the surface in a region of the desert called Gandom-Berrian, which is a plateau that's covered in dark-colored solid lava, the temperature can reach a maximum of 159.3 degrees Fahrenheit or 70.7 degrees Celsius, which is far greater than anywhere else. Number 8. Greenland Ice Sheet, Greenland. Covering an estimated area of approximately 660,000 square miles, or 1.7 million square kilometers, the Greenland Ice Sheet is the second largest continuous formation of ice in the world, after the one that's found in the Antarctic. It covers around 79% of the total landmass of Greenland and is more than 1,800 miles long, and at its widest it measures 680 miles. At up to 1.9 miles thick, it's a huge store of water, and it's believed that if the entire ice sheet were to melt, it would immediately cause world sea levels to rise by 24 feet, or 7.2 meters. It is also one of the driest places in the world, as simply too cold for precipitation to form or fall, and this, along with the presence of such a huge frozen mass of ice, means that temperatures plunge to some of the most extreme lows you'll find anywhere. The Klink Research Station was set up in an extremely remote part of the ice sheet, and it's close to its highest point, an altitude of around 10,800 feet. It's perhaps no surprise then that the coldest temperature measured in Greenland was recorded on instruments there, and in December of 1991, researchers made a reading of negative 93 degrees Fahrenheit, or negative 69.4 degrees Celsius. Number 7. Tirat Zvi, Israel. Tirat Zvi, which translates to mean Zvi's Fort, is a small religious kibbutz that's in the Beit Shean Valley of Israel. With a population of around 900 people, it relies on a local meat processing facility, as well as one of the largest date palm growers in the country, to maintain its economy. It was founded in 1937 as part of a settlement program in the region at the time, and while the new residents thought it provided an ideal climate for their needs when they moved there, they soon found that the region was on occasion subjected to extreme conditions. This is because it sits on an area of land that's around 720 feet or 220 meters below sea level, and means that during sweltering conditions, there's very little prevailing wind that can blow over and cool things down. Amazingly, it does hold the current record for the highest temperature recorded in Asia, which was set in June of 1942. At the height of the sun that day, thermometers showed a reading of 129.2 degrees Fahrenheit or 54 degrees Celsius. And while they quite haven't reached that level since then, it's still a place where people have to take serious precautions against being overcome by the heat. Number 6. Vostok Research Station, Antarctica. Built in 1957, the Vostok Research Station is Russia's main facility in Antarctica. It can be found in inland Princess Elizabeth Land, which is a territory that's actually claimed by Australia, and from there scientists carry out various pieces of research that include ice core drilling and magnetometry. It's around 808 miles or 1,300 kilometers from the geographic South Pole and sits at an elevation of around 11,400 feet, above sea level. Surprisingly, it's actually one of the sunniest places on Earth, despite seeing no sunlight during the winter months, and beats Australia, South Africa, and the Arabian Peninsula on that metric. Sunlight doesn't necessarily equal warmth, however, and the research station is on the edge of the region known as the southern pole of the cold. It's there that the lowest reliably naturally occurring temperature on Earth was recorded in July of 1983. When it was found to be negative 128.6 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 89.2 degrees Celsius. Extremes like that aren't common, but the region is still very cold at other times, with the average temperature of its cold season each year being negative 87 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 66 degrees Celsius, and the average temperature of its warm season barely rising above negative 47 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 44 degrees Celsius. Number 5. Timbuktu, Mali. The city of Timbuktu can be found 12 miles or 20 kilometers to the north of the Niger River in Mali, and with a population of around 55,000 people, is the capital of its regional district. First established as a permanent settlement in the 12th century, its location meant that it would soon become a vital stop on trade routes that passed through, and it became wealthy from the trades of salt, gold, ivory, and slaves. The city has been conquered and taken over many times throughout history, and at one point became the scholarly center of Africa, where the greatest thinkers of the time would publish and sell books. The city is long past its heyday now and is considered an impoverished region that's also suffering from desertification thanks to the changing climatic conditions. Located on the southern edge of the Sahara Desert, it was once an oasis for weary travelers, but it's now being overcome by the sands, and temperatures continue to rise as this happens. It is one of the hottest permanently inhabited places in the world, with measurements of up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit or 49 degrees Celsius becoming even more commonplace, and conditions are becoming so difficult, particularly during dust storms, that it's unlikely the city will be able to support a long-term population within a matter of decades. Number 4. Denali, Alaska. With an elevation of 20,310 feet, or 6,190 meters above sea level, Denali is the highest peak in North America. It's part of the Alaska Range in the U.S. state of Alaska and is surrounded by a protected region called the Denali National Park and Preserve. Because of its relative ease of access in comparison to other mountains, Denali has become particularly popular with climbers over the past century. The first claimed ascent took place in 1903, while the first confirmed one took place a decade later. And despite there being several routes that can be followed to the summit, climbers have always faced one main obstacle: the weather. To try to help them know what to expect, a series of weather stations have been installed on the mountain, and this includes one that's near the summit and is the third highest weather station on Earth. Its presence has given a detailed look as to what the conditions at the top of the mountain are like and how regularly the temperatures plunge. In December of 2003, the station measured a temperature of negative 75.5 degrees Fahrenheit, or negative 59 degrees Celsius. But it's what happened the day before that reading that broke records. Despite the temperature being slightly warmer at negative 74.4 degrees Fahrenheit, or 59.1 degrees Celsius, it happened in conjunction with a wind speed of 18.4 miles or 29 kilometers per hour, which combined to give the lowest wind chill ever recorded in North America of negative 118.1 degrees Fahrenheit, or negative 83.4 degrees Celsius. Number 3. Kabylie, Tunisia. The town of Kabylie is in central Tunisia and is one of the oldest oases in all of Africa. The earliest signs of human activity in the region date back to an astonishing 200,000 years ago, and there have been communities in the area for at least the past 10,000. The town became part of the Roman Empire after the Punic Wars and will unfortunately always be remembered as one of the major hubs for the slave trade, from where they would be sold to Europe and sent to the port city of Gabes to be loaded onto ships. Today, the city has tried to turn around its fortunes into other areas and mainly relies on agriculture and tourism to support the economy. There's such a rich cultural history to explore that visitors come from around the world, but they have to be prepared because it's also an incredibly hot place. It's on the edge of the Sahara Desert and holds the record, according to the World Meteorological Service, as having the highest confirmed temperature on the entire African continent. There, the air temperature alone can reach 131 degrees Fahrenheit or 55 degrees Celsius, and the ground temperature in places can far surpass this. Number 2. Amundsen Scott South Pole Station, Antarctica. The Amundsen Scott South Pole Station is the southernmost research station on Earth, and it's located at the South Pole. Operated by the United States, it's at an altitude of 9,300 feet, or about 2,800 meters above sea level, and the first version of it was built in 1956. It's gone through several iterations since then, but has regularly studied the weather and climate conditions ever since. Incredibly, this is the only inhabited place on the Earth's surface where you'll experience 6 continuous months of daylight, followed by 6 months of darkness, and this creates the ideal conditions for temperatures to plummet. It may not hold the record for the chilliest measurement taken on the continent, but the lows experienced there last longer than anywhere else. The coldest it's ever been confirmed to be is negative 117 degrees Fahrenheit, or negative 82 degrees Celsius, which occurred in June of 1982, and stayed constant at that for 2 days. Number 1. Ghadames, Libya. Ghadames is an oasis town in northwestern Libya and has been inhabited for more than 6,000 years. Regarded as being one of the oldest and pre-Saharan settlements, it would have been a welcome sight to weary travelers passing through because of its position on a water source, and that's why successive civilizations, including the Romans, have always shown a keen interest in it. It's changed hands more times than anyone knows, and used to be split into 7 different districts, with each one being ruled by each of the leading clans. Situated close to the border with Algeria and Tunisia, the town still has a population of around 10,000 people, most of whom are Berbers. Ghadames has been declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, so benefits from a series of initiatives designed to help preserve the old town, but it remains a sanctuary for those enduring the heat of the desert. Temperatures in Ghadames itself are less than forgiving too, with an average each year of 104 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius. But on occasion, it's been known to reach 131 degrees Fahrenheit or 55 degrees Celsius, which leads even the most hardened desert residents to spend the day under cover. Watch our binge-watching playlist if you'd like to watch all of our most popular top 15 videos. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and get ready to binge.